How y'all doing out there tonight? Welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thanks for joining us. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Great week. Having a great weekend. It's starting to get cold. Feel that fall in the air, and it's tough to deal with. I'm a spring summer kind of spirit. Although I like the fall. I like the change of seasons and such, and I even like the beauty of winter. But I don't much care for being cold. And I can definitely feel the energy has changed when fall comes in. It just, I don't know. It's a tougher season for me. But anyway, this show is not all about me. It's about everything paranormal. If it's paranormal, this show is about it. If you're into paranormal, then you should be into the show. So again, hope everything's going well. It's been a good week. Gotten some great feedback from some listeners and some friends, and I hope to continue to expand the show and continue to expand what we're doing, and we're looking into some possible changes, and I won't get into too much detail at this currently, but trust that you'll know with plenty of time in advance before anything gets changed too drastically. But it's some exciting things in the near future. So definitely stick around and stay in touch, and I will keep you posted. So this is the Paranormal Portal. It's our show about paranormal topics and discussions and anecdotes and testimonials and beliefs and opinions. And please don't ever be offended by what you hear. It's not about popularity contests. It's about discussing things that are on the fringe or on the edge. They're out there, but people are experiencing them. That our reality is actually bigger than what we believe it is. And if anything, I hope that the show will always be a reminder to believe that there's more to this world than we think. And definitely welcome any of you to be involved in the show as much as you're willing to be. There is a call-in line. It's 866-37-TRUTH, TRUTH. That's 866-378-7884. Please call in if you got feedback about what we're talking about. If you've got opinion you'd like to share, an anecdote, a tale. Again, please don't call in if you read something this one time or this guy once told you a story about. And those stories are great and all, but I would like to keep it as true to the source as we can, and going over topics that are 4 or 5 times removed. It just, I'm sorry to say, but it's just harder to subscribe to. But if it happens to you, that would be great. If it happens to someone you directly know and love or care about or are close to, that'd be great. Additionally, if you're not into being on the air, you feel a little nervous, you don't want to get on, talk to all of the people that might be listening, then please feel free to email. The show's email is paranormalportal4u, the number 4, the letter U, @gmail.com, all one word. Email your show ideas, email your feedback, email your testimonial, email your experiences. If you don't want to be identified, that's fine. Just let me know. I'll be happy to conceal your identity. This isn't about, showboating or showcasing any one person and making them, exposed. It's just about sharing a phenomenon. So welcome to the show, and really thrilled to be here myself. Special thanks again to Truth Frequency for having us and putting up with us, and hope you guys enjoy the show. So one of the new things I want to do, and this was actually a suggestion from Lucky, who's a friend, and I've come to know her and think she's a phenomenal person, but she gave us an idea for the show, and I think we're going to do that. And it's just going to be anything coming up in the news throughout the week that we can talk about quickly before we move into the main content. So welcome to the Paranormal Portal news segment. I don't have any kind of drops for that, so I just got to make them up as I go, and you get to put up with it. So one of the things that happened this last week, or at least that I became aware of, and granted not all of it is directly new news, but it's new to me news, so it's what I'm going to be talking about. One of the things, as I said, is there apparently is some very firm signals coming into SETI that they're researching. They are very, very probably from an intelligent civilization about, I think it was 9 light years away. Again, the article is out there on theobserver.com. It's called Not a Drill. SETI is investigating a possible extraterrestrial signal from deep space. And all of that was separated by hyphens. And but check out theobserver.com if you wanted the full story of the article, but it's very exciting. I've personally always believed that there is life out there. I've had experiences. If you have listened to the show, you can hear my experiences. I don't pretend you want to hear them every time I do the show, though, so I'll just leave it at that, and you can check out the archives and hear it for yourself. But anyway, it's nice to see that that something has come in through the SETI program. I know it's been a program that's been being worked on for, my God, it's got to be quite a while anyway, but I became aware of it probably about 15 years ago during the whole SETI at home craze, where you could download a little segment of their program onto your computer, and it will help munch at the phenomenal amount of data that they have during your computer's what they call passive cycles, when your computer's not really doing much. It'll use that extra clock cycles the processor has available to work on their data, unless you move the mouse and start doing something. So anyway, I signed up for that, and I had that going on my computer, and I was really excited about it. But nothing came out. And so it's really exciting that after all this time, they've actually found something with a very strong lead. And the technical specifics of what they cover in this article are really, really exciting. And it's either an incredibly advanced civilization, or it's a civilization that's very similar in advancement to our own, and that is contingent upon the type of signal, whether it's a directed signal or if it's basically like our radio waves, where we have a beacon that goes up and just shoots them off in every direction. So if it's like our radio beacon, then the power of the signal is absolutely phenomenal, and that's what leads the researchers to believe that this is an advanced civilization. If it is a directed signal that was aimed at us because they might have heard something going on over here, then they could be anywhere from advanced to right along our lines of development. But anyway, very exciting news, and very encouraging. Additionally, in the news, I'm not sure if you are aware of the SpaceX test flight that was going to go up. It was going to bring a Facebook satellite into space to help spread internet to other countries, developing countries, and it exploded on the platform. Now, I encourage you to go to YouTube and do some research, because there's some really neat things people have caught on the footage that was released that could very well be a UFO passing through the scene. Now, I don't claim to be an expert and not sure quite what to think of it, but clearly something does pass through the frame. Something does phase in and out of the frame behind that. And the speed at which this is passing through the frames, and it clearly can't be a bird. It can't be anything natural. And the reason I say that is the frames show the explosion expanding from nearly nothing to the next frame, to a little bit off of the rocket, to the next frame, quite a bit off the rocket. But anybody that's watched an explosion knows in real time that they're just boom. It's like, it happens fast enough to push a pressure wave out of air that is, very damaging. And so this thing flies through the frame like before the explosion has even expanded a lot. And so the speed at which it's traveling has got to be phenomenal, but I didn't hear any calculations based on that, although I was hoping that somebody would have covered that. But anyway, that's very interesting news. And again, it's speculative, but the data shows that there clearly could have been something up. So that'll conclude our news segment for now. There's other things that I want to cover, but I want to do a lot more looking into them. And if you have ideas for the news, please email or let us know those as well. I would like to cover things you guys are interested in. So let me know what you're interested in. Anyway, tonight's show again was it was a 2-part inspiration for me. One of them was from a listener. Got an email with a question, and the listener doesn't want to be identified, and that's fine. But she was asking my opinion on reincarnation, and I've always been open to the idea, and I guess I've always believed in the idea of reincarnation. And again, the show isn't about my beliefs personally or anything, but since I'm the host, I get to cover those. And my idea is that, in a nutshell, I think life is about expansion. It's about development, and it's about learning and growing. I think that we were created from a divinity, and that divinity exists within us. And our life is a journey to rediscovering that divinity and developing it within ourselves. And I don't know of anybody that in their lifetime has done things absolutely right. There are stories of people in the past who have, but generally most of us are really, we really trip, we fumble, we fall, and so it's hard to believe that any one lifetime is enough to have done that, and enough to have taught us what we need to know. And I know plenty of people that have lived their lives and never seem to learn anything. And so I have to believe that if I'm correct in what I believe, that we are developing, we are growing, we are becoming, then it's going to require time. It's going to require many experiences. And I believe that all of us are interconnected, and excuse me. And then, we learn, of course, through ourselves, through our own experience, and through others. And so I think I do believe in reincarnation. I think that we do pass on, we go back and we review, we look at what we did and what we didn't do and what we didn't do right. And we may come back and do it again. We may do whole different things again. And you all know people in your lives. You know, people that seem really developed. They seem really together. They seem to really have things figured out. They seem to really be in tune. And then you all know the guys that will kick their puppy, drink a beer, and, put cigarettes out on their railing just because they're bored. It's just, there's such a spectrum of people out there. And so it seems to me, and it seems to be the popular belief, that it's, we hear these terms about, that's a very old soul, that's a very young soul, and so perhaps they're accurate, and perhaps those things are true. Perhaps those young souls haven't been around quite as long. They haven't done as much as those old souls, those seasoned people that seem to be so calming and enlightening. So perhaps that's the case. And I'm about to sneeze. Oh my God. I muted the microphone for that one. Oof. Excuse me. Allergies. Another one of my joys of the fall. Thank you, fall. So anyway, that's kind of my, that is my opinion on the subject. And we'll go over some of that tonight. In doing the show, again, it's kind of like the past life or the near-death experiences, the NDEs. Of course, everybody that has experienced them tells a very similar tale, but it's the tales from children that seem to carry the most weight, at least in even the skeptical researchers. They seem to carry the most weight because there isn't a preconceived notion with children. They don't have their programming from religions or from cultural expectations or whatever, and yet they still report the same phenomenon. So with the past life recall that children have, and we're talking thousands of children have been absolutely researched, and we'll go into that a little more, but that they wouldn't have the stories, they wouldn't have the history knowledge, just because, a lot of them are 2, 3, 4 years old that are recalling these lives that they couldn't possibly know, and recalling towns and people that they've never been to. And so when it comes from the children, to me personally, it seems so much more credible because they don't have anything to draw from, and yet they're still coming up with these ideas and these opinions. And so that's exciting. Well, we'll get into that tonight and cover some of those tales and see what you think. And well, I guess we'll get right into that now. I wanted to start with a website that I found. I think it's a really great site. And again, I don't mean to discount or discredit anything, but I think in fields such as past lives and reincarnation, if there are doctors and psychologists looking into this, I think that can be very powerful stuff. And there seem to be some very open-minded ones. And oddly enough, and I know Chris Gio would love this, but the website that I found it on was www.iisis.net, isis.net. And I thought that was neat. Now, Isis in this instance is not directly referencing the ancient goddess, but in this case, it's the Institute for the Integration of Science, Intuition, and Spirit. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And it's in here is an article by Walter Semkiw, Kiw, Semkiw, MD. And I wanted to read that article to you because I think it's very, very profound, and it's a good overview to start with. So let's go through that. Excuse me. The most compelling reincarnation cases are those in which small children spontaneously remember past lives that can be factually, they misspelled factually, I think, verified. Ian Stevenson, MD of the University of Virginia, compiled over 1,200 of these objectively validated cases, which in aggregate provide proof of reincarnation. His academic research is presented on the IISIS website as children's past life stories for ease of understanding. Typically, in these cases, the child starts telling his or her parents about the past incarnation as soon as they learn to speak. These memories can include their name in the past lifetime, as well as the names of their parents and family members from prior incarnation. The child may also recall the name of the town or city in which they lived. When the child provides detailed enough information, the parents or involved researchers are able to locate the past life family and introduce the child to this family. Often the child will be able to identify these past life family members by name, individuals that the child has never met in their contemporary lifetime. The child can know information and secrets about their past lifetimes that only members of this past life family are aware of. Based on the child's past life memories, the past life family will often accept the child as the reincarnation of their deceased loved ones. Two key independently researched reincarnation cases of this kind, which also demonstrate physical resemblances from one lifetime to another, are provided below. And of course, there's links to Hanan Mansour / Suzanne Ghanem, and they have a picture of her, and Rashid Khadeg and Daniel Jurdi are the two cited cases, and then they're linked as well in the article. These two cases cited above were researched by the late Ian Stevenson, MD, a pioneer in the reincarnation research who was professor at the University of Virginia in the Division of Perceptual Studies. Dr. Stevenson chose only to research cases involving children with spontaneous memories, as he felt these cases were the most likely to be valid. Another compelling reincarnation case involved past life memories in childhood is that of Anne Frank / Barbro Carlin. Memories accessed in adulthood can be confounded by the adult reading historical information and about the proposed past lifetime or era, which could taint the case. Dr. Stevenson did not trust information gained through past life regressions, as he felt subjects could fabricate or make up memories. Though this is true, the case of Carol Beckwith / Robert Snow, which was derived through a past life regression, is a convincing reincarnation case. The xenoglossy cases of Gretchen Gottlieb and Dolores J. and Jensen Jacoby /TE, researched by Ian Stevenson, MD, also emerged through hypnosis or past life regression. Researchers at the University of Virginia, such as Jim Tucker, MD, continue to focus primarily on cases involving children with spontaneous memories. Reincarnation cases in aggregate provide proof of reincarnation, and indeed, Dr. Jim Tucker has stated on U.S. national television that sufficient evidence now exists to conclude that reincarnation exists. He did so when appearing in support of the James Houston Jr. / James Leninger reincarnation case after it was aired on ABC Primetime. Sorry, I have to keep muting my mic. I'm really coughing here, so forgive me. Ideally, researchers should be involved in a case before the child is introduced to the past life family, so that the child's reactions and identifications of past life family members can be witnessed objectively. There are also cases in which children have partial memories where the child does not provide enough information for the parents or researchers to identify the past life family. Additional memories or information may be accessed later in life, which can allow the individual to identify their past incarnation. Examples of this case of this sort are provided below, and there's 3 listed there. In some cases based on spontaneous past life memories in childhood, in which the child's memories can be validated objectively, are the most compelling of all reincarnationist cases. So that was a good overview, and I think it's a very strong statement to make, this thing, claiming that the case is shut and there is proof. And so I guess it all depends on what you want to believe or choose to believe. But I find in anything paranormal that there seems to be a direct correlation between what people are willing to believe and what they won't believe and the experiences that they have. In many cases, like in haunted houses that are truly haunted, a person that will not believe, just refuses to acknowledge the phenomenon, will find so many reasons for something that has happened. Like if a door shut, well, clearly there was a window open somewhere, or there's a vacuum that created, from opening another door. And I'm not trying to discredit that can't be the case from time to time, but when the phenomenon is so clearly and poignantly displayed and people still refuse. And I think that has a lot to do with the personal paradigm, that people's paradigms shifting is a very painful thing. And then I understand that, and I feel for those people, because when your reality shifts, when your life changes in an instant because you've just observed something that doesn't exist, it's life altering, and it's hard to process. And some people never do correctly process these things, and they may live in fear the rest of their life when they are actually given, witness to something very incredible. So I know that many people with a religious background also will outright deny the ability of past life to exist and reincarnation, but it's half the world's population believes this exists. Whether that's tied to religious teachings or whatever, the fact that half of the world's population believes something exists is very compelling, because, yeah, there's people that believe a lot of stupid things. I understand that, but we're talking objective people. We're talking professionals. We're talking people from, lifestyles that are, more... The fact that they're willing to subscribe to such a thing, I think, is very powerful as well. Now, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't really mean or change anything, but I think we as human beings are searchers. We're searching for truth, and that truth is many things. It's not just, math. It's not just a number equaling another number. It's about possibilities, I guess. And that's why, for me personally, it's probably not really important whether someone believes anything or not, but the fact that they're willing to discard possibilities, to me, is almost sacrilegious, because they are in their actions and in their words and in their condemnations, they are saying that the amazing scope of life can't be that big. It needs to be small for them. And they are trying to control that narrative. And so I don't mean to be on a soapbox about this, but I think it is important. And I think it's also it's also very powerful that people don't need things to fit in a box. They can live with things existing in their own right, and still their life is fine. They're complete, and it can grow. It gives a room for all of us to grow and expand and do more. So on the other side of the break, we'll get into more of these stories, and we'll talk a little more about the subject. But thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the other side in just a couple minutes. God bless y'all. Thanks for rejoining us. I'm sorry I left my mic on because I was coughing again, but thank you. And it brings up a great point. I was going to tell you guys, if you want to join the conversation, please call in and let us know what you're thinking. Additionally, if you would rather, stop by truthfrequencyradio.com and join the online chat. There's great people in there, and they're always on board with the discussion as well, and some great ideas and concepts bouncing around in there, and very intelligent, funny people, great fun. So stop in the chat room if you want, meet some people, and I stop in there when I can, and I will try to look at the comments as I can. To if you want to make a comment for the show, I'll try to see it, but if not, please forgive me. Anyway, thanks again for joining us after the break. Hope we didn't lose anybody, and I hope you're enjoying the show. So getting back into the stories, the anecdotes, the tales, I wanted to talk about some of the things, some of the reports out there. Now, this next article I wanted to cover comes from the Daily Mail from the United Kingdom, and they actually discuss the concept, and it's the children who swear they've lived a previous life, and the details they give, which are so astonishing they're hard to dismiss as make-believe. And that was a mouthful for a title of an article, but anyway. When she was 3 years old, a friend's daughter announced that her real name was Joseph. At first, her parents thought this was comical, if also slightly puzzling. Enunciate, Brent, enunciate. But it became alarming as the girl, Sally, insisted she was a boy, and that her parents, Anna and Richard, weren't her real parents, and their home city wasn't her real home. She was convinced that, as Joseph, she lived in a little house by the sea with lots of brothers and sisters. She seemed so certain, Anna told me. Initially, we thought she was playing a make-believe game. But this isn't imaginary. It's almost as if she has memories of when she was a boy called Joseph. She keeps asking to see the ships, and we've never taken her to the seaside in her life. It should be pointed out that Sally's birth was almost a miracle, coming after her parents had been vainly trying for a child for years, undergoing a series of failed IVF treatments, in vitro fertilization. Thank you. Whereas Dad Richard was no-nonsense chap who found this behavior hard to take, Mom Anna knew that their daughter wasn't playing tricks. She felt strongly that Sally's memories were in some way real. The possible explanations, some kind of mental illness, reincarnation, or ghostly possession, all seemed equally unnerving. But of her daughter's truthfulness, she had no doubt. For her part, Sally was frustrated because the grown-ups didn't take her seriously. We advised Anna not to let Sally see she was worried and to wait and see what developed. Sure enough, 6 weeks later, the little girl stopped talking about Joseph in the house by the sea and seemed to have forgotten those memories. But I never forgot about it. Earlier this year, a book appeared that set me thinking about what had happened. Memories of Heaven by the motivational speaker Dr. Wayne Dyer and his assistant D. Garnes? I don't know. collects dozens of similar stories, proving that, whatever the explanation, there was nothing unusual about Sally. The book was compiled when Dr. Dyer had been ill with leukemia for years, and he died of a heart attack before it was published. Certainly there is often an annoying shortage of detail in the accounts, which are printed verbatim from the letters and emails sent to him by the readers. But what the testimonials lack in background and research, they make up for with their apparent honesty. These stories come from dozens of independent sources, yet all of them often tell of the phenomenon so similar they seem to describe the same events. One-off accounts of supernatural oddness, however convincing, can be dismissed as anomalies. But when scores of parents report the same experiences with their children, perhaps we should take notice. Zibby Guest from Chester writes that her second son, Ronnie, was 16 months old when he started talking, and would often refer to his other house where he was a grown-up with another mommy and daddy. And Susan Bowers from the U.S. didn't know whether to gasp or laugh when her 3-year-old looked up from struggling with his shoelaces and grumbled, "I used to be a man before, but I guess I'll have to learn how to do this again." Anne Marie Gonzalez, another American, was a little freaked out when her daughter on her laptop stopped singing in mid-song and asked her mother if her mother remembered the fire. Anne Marie asked what she was talking about. The little girl slowly described a blaze that had killed both her parents and left her an orphan living with her grandmother, Laura. Another small child, the youngest daughter of Heather Lee Simpson in Indiana, couldn't bear the sound of sirens. They reminded her of the awful day when men came and took her mother away and never brought her back. When her puzzled mom pointed out that she was still there, her daughter said, "No, the mummy before you." Other accounts contain rather more detail. A 4-year-old American called Tristan, for example, was watching Tom and Jerry cartoon on TV while his mother, Rachel Martin, was cooking. He wandered in the kitchen and asked her, "Do you remember a long time ago I used to cook in George Washington's kitchen? I was a kid." Humoring him, his mom asked if she had been there too. He replied, "Yes. We were brown people, but later I died. I couldn't breathe," and he gestured with his arms wrapped around his throat. Intrigued, Rachel read up on George Washington and discovered that his cook, Hercules, had 3 children, Richmond, Evie, and Delia. Discussing her findings with her son, he said he remembered Richmond and Evie but couldn't think of who Delia was. The idea that these memories of past lives is given some credence by the fact that the children often describe dying, even though they might be too young to have learned about death. Take the story of Els van Poppel and her 22-month-old son, Cairo. They were about to cross a road in Australia when Cairo said they should be careful, otherwise I'll die again. Shocked, his mother listened as he added, "Remember when I was little and I fell and my head was on the road and the truck drove over it?" Els is convinced Cairo had never seen anything so gruesome on TV nor heard it discussed. Equally, she was sure he hadn't dreamt about it. Memories of Heaven, author Dr. Dyer himself, a father of 8, had a similar experience. He says his daughter Serena often talked in an unidentified foreign language in her sleep. Once she told her mother, "You are not my real mother. I have a real mother that I remember, but it's not you." There are dozens of such stories in Dyer's book, from a girl who remembered being a wartime soldier with a blue-eyed daughter and a swastika on an armband, to the boy who regularly recalled being an old man in a chair by the hearth under a thatched roof. Of course, most people reading such stories will say there's a simple, rational explanation. Perhaps the child has glimpsed something on TV just for an instant, and that the notion has been growing in the subconscious infant mind. But much harder to explain are the recollections of past lives that match a child's family history, with them seeming to know about relatives who died before they were born. For example, Jody Amsbury became pregnant about 2 years after her mother suffered a late miscarriage. The stillborn child was named Nicole, and Jody decided that her own baby girl would be called Nicole. When she was 5, Nicole said to her mom, "Before I was in your tummy, I was in Granny's tummy." Annie Kiley tells a similar story about a friend whose first daughter died before she was a year old. The woman was devastated, of course, and it was 7 years before she had another baby. The second time around, fearful of fate, she was reluctant to do the same thing she had done with her other child. She sang different lullabies, for example, yet when her daughter was 4 and heard a song her mother had sung to her dead sister, but not to her, the child announced that she recognized it. She said, "Mommy, you used to sing it to me." Similarly, Judy Nicely was dumbstruck when her 3-year-old daughter announced that she used to be a boy and that her grandmother had been her mother. "I was her little boy and I died when I was almost 4. Sure enough, the grandmother had lost a son just before his 4th birthday. Some of these stories involve child claiming to be a much older relative. One woman reports how her 2-year-old son twice told her that he used to be her father. Another was telling her 2-year-old granddaughter about her own grandmother, who had brought her up and died 50 years earlier, when the little girl said, "I know because I am her." Then there was Susan Robinson, who fell asleep only to be woken by her 3-year-old daughter, smoothing her hair in a caring maternal way and saying, "Don't you remember? I used to be your mother." One fascinating implication of these apparent stories of reincarnation is that it does not happen at random. Such cases normally involve children claiming to be someone who was a family member in the past. This suggests that there's an element of choice in where they get reborn. The theory is borne out by letters collected by Dr. Dyer. Tina Mitchell in Blackpool, for example, writes vividly of a car journey she was making with her 5-year-old Mather, Mather, when he pointed to a cloud and said, "When I was 0, before I was born, I stood on a cloud like that with God having fun." A few weeks later, he repeated the claim, adding, "When I was standing on the cloud, God told me to pick my mummy. I looked down and saw mummies everywhere. They all wanted me to pick them, and they were all reaching for me. And then I saw you. You were alone and sad, and you couldn't find your little boy. And I knew I loved you, and you loved me, so I told God that I wanted you." The fact is that his mother was single and alone at the time she adopted Mather when he was just a few hours old. Sometimes such memories of children choosing their parents stay with people all their lives. Judy Smith, who is now in her mid-70s, remembers telling her parents when she was 3 that she had picked them. "I was somewhere above the earth looking down at a gathering of several pairs of people," she writes. "I then heard a voice asking me which ones I wanted as my parents. I was told that whichever couple I choose, I could teach them what I needed to learn. I pointed to my parents and replied, 'I'll take them.' But such selection process is not always quick. Chris Sawmiller's 4-year-old son Lucas complained to her, 'Do you know how long I waited for you to be my mom? A long, long time.' Lucas has told the story several times and always emphasizes how long he waited. He says he made the right choice. 'I picked you to be my mom because I love you so much.' A similar story is told by Robert Rini, whose 5-year-old son told him and his wife that he had picked them to be his parents while he was in heaven. Apparently, he thought he went through one door to inspect the mothers and fathers and then another to see who his siblings would be. Sometimes the stories are agonizingly poignant. Marie Burkett of Southampton had to terminate a pregnancy while she was being treated for back problems. Years later, after she eventually became a mother, her 2-year-old daughter said, "Mommy, you sent me back the first time because you had a bad back, but I came back when your back was better." Descriptions of heaven are blissfully childlike. One mother says her daughter claims to remember sitting in a ring of angels throwing a ball around a circle. Another claimed her son was adamant that heaven was all parks. The mother of a girl called Amy Radigan had 2 miscarriages before giving birth to a sister for Amy. When that girl reached 3, she told her mom that she missed her unborn siblings because they had all played together in heaven. Often these games involve flying on angel wings. Similarly, Sandra McGeish told Dr. Dyer's daughter that at night an angel would take her on flights to see her grandfather, who had died 10 years earlier. The old man was apparently growing yellow roses for his wife, who is still alive. Wings, it seems, are what children miss most about heaven. For instance, Trina Lemberger's grandson was snuggling up to her when he said, sadly, "I'm forgetting how to fly." Meanwhile, after Susan Lovejoy's 5-year-old Joseph broke his arm trying to make a jump, he complained to his mom, "When am I going to get my wings back?" She explained that only planes have wings, and he sobbed pitifully, saying that God had told him that when he returned to Earth, he would have his wings back. Of course, all these stories may be childish fantasies, but as I read them, I thought about my friend's daughter, and those memories of a life before this one seemingly impossible, yet so vivid and sure. And I found myself wondering whether it's these children who know the truth and we adults who have forgotten it. That's a pretty cool, long story, though. I didn't realize it was going to be that long, but yeah, that's very poignant, very powerful. And again, it's the child's viewpoint is what makes those so powerful, because it's the innocence. It's the innocence of a child, and they don't have the preconceptions. They don't have preformed ideas. They just, I don't know. They just radiate. I guess that's the best way I could say it. There's another great article in a website called psychologytoday.com. And I didn't really get a chance to read through this before the show. And I'm sorry for my lack of preparation, but I'm just looking at it now, and I think it's going to be very long. But if you get a chance, check out that article on psychologytoday.com. It's in their blog. Children Who Seemingly Remember Past Lives. It's by author Michael Jawer, Jawer. And looks like it's a great article. So check it out if you get the time. Or you just want to pursue more of this topic. Another site I found was thoughtcatalog.com. And this is from Christine Stockton from 2014. Parents share what their creepy kid has remembered, because everything about past lives isn't all just I knew you, and then I had this happen, and then I came back. Some of it's kind of dark and less joyful, but let's go into a few of those stories. I was inspired by the insane news about a 3-year-old boy who remembered being murdered in his last life, and then correctly led people to where his body was buried, and identified the murderer to compile some other stories of kids who seem to have past life memories. Here's the best ones I could find in different forums on Reddit. He showed us his grave. When my brother was about 2 or 3, he told us his name. He told us his name used to be Austin. One day we were picnicking right alongside a cemetery when my brother took off running towards the gravestones. My dad and I followed him and found him touching a large headstone that simply read, "Here lies Austin." No name, no date. My brother did not learn to read until he was 6, and this headstone wasn't even right out visible from where we were, yet he ran right to it. We don't watch firefighter things. Another story. My son told me a few months ago he used to be a firefighter, and we got called to a fire, and there wasn't any family inside the house, so we just put the fire out. Then the fire truck caught fire, and I died. A few nights later, he elaborated that he was taken to a hospital where he died. We don't watch firefighter things. I don't blame you. Her other mother's name was Sally. I was talking to my 4-year-old when he began to freak out. He was telling me a story about her other mother. She was telling me a story about her other mother, and that she died a long time ago on a Thursday. I tried to brush it off, whatever. She's a kid. They have wild imaginations. But then she started to go further into detail about the death of her other mother, whose name was apparently Sally. She has never met anyone named Sally, and I can't recall any shows on TV she watches where Sally is a character. She told me that she was playing with her father's gun that she found and accidentally shot and killed Sally while she was walking upstairs. It's pretty weird. There are no guns in this house. I haven't even really told her what guns are all about and how they can hurt or kill someone. She's only 4. I think I am beginning to understand now why when I try to tell her when somebody dies, they go away forever. She tells me that is not true. We come back, Mommy. I'm only 23 and I had my daughter very young, and despite not being prepared, I don't think I could ever have been prepared for a conversation like that. Yeah, I don't think anybody could be prepared for that. When she lived before she was born. My daughter did the same thing at the same age. She told me about her life when she lived before she was born and described herself as a woman with long hair who lived in an apartment with a long flight of stairs outside of it. She drove a VW Bug and wore long skirts. She then told me that she fell down the stairs and died. Her stories were startlingly vivid. Sorry. You had a fat tongue or something, I don't know. And always consistent, quite spooky. She is now 19 and doesn't remember it. My advice would be to write down everything your daughter tells you on the subject. Everything. Record her stories if you can. Yeah, I suppose that's probably the other side of it, is that, I don't think I remember a lot of my childhood, and the older I get, the less I remember. Roanoke is the name of the next little clip. I would tell my older sister about my death. I told her my husband was captured and fire was captured and fire was everywhere. I took my young son and ran. I told her my son couldn't run fast enough. I knew we would get killed, and I had my husband's knife on me. I wanted to leave a clue. I wrote in capitals CROATOAN. I told her we were caught and how my son was killed before I was killed. I told her how I was stabbed in the stomach with a knife. Then I went about playing with dolls. I can still picture the scene and my son to this day. That's pretty dark. She used to come visit me. My son says he remembered his great-grandmother, which would be the author's grandmother, and can describe her in perfect detail, how she looks, how she acted, and even what brand of cigarettes she smoked. Although she died 11 days before he was born, he says that she used to come visit him in his dreams. That's probably not as much of a past life as it is a loving grandparent staying in touch. The next one's called Conchon, Conchon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Apparently, beginning around the time my friend could form sentences until he was a little more than 2, he would go on and on about how he was a Native American named Conchon, and that after his wife and son got sick and died, he moved to a mountain to live by himself with his horse. He died of a broken neck when he fell into a ravine. That's kind of a sad ending. My real mom and dad were killed when the bad men came. When I was 2 or 3, I was talking to my grandmother and told her that my mom and dad weren't my real mom and dad. My grandmother, knowing this wasn't true, said they were. I calmly explained that no, my real mom and dad were killed when the bad men came. I had lived because my mom hid me behind a rock. I then went on to describe white men with guns and us dark people with long hair. When I was done, I went back to eating my ice cream. The next one's called Jesus or Jesus. I'm not sure what the correlation is. My cousin, approximately 3 years old and riding in the car with my mom and dad, pointed out at a random house that they went past and declared, "I died there." That's the whole story. So I guess it's Jesus. Not Jesus, it's Jesus. Included because what is what this one's called. I did something sort of similar, I guess, when I was about 3. My mom and I were driving over a bridge on which there'd recently been a major accident that resulted in the car bursting into flames and the driver dying. Anyway, I asked my mom who the man in the front seat was, and when she told me to describe him, I said, "Well, he's on fire and he keeps looking back at me." Okay, that's really not past life either. That's not. That's kind of off topic, I guess. But anyway, I guess we're getting some good ghost stories here too tonight. Thought I'd mix it up a little bit. Sorry about that. I should probably screen these a little more carefully. So anyway, clearly there's a lot going on out there, and clearly there's a phenomenon that exists, and it has been measured, it has been weighed, and it has been researched, and it appears that we do come back around. And maybe there's a choice. Maybe at the end you get to choose that. I want to go back. I want to try this again. I want to stay with those people because they mean a lot to me. Whatever the nature of it is, it's still very important. And it's, I guess we all have a lot to learn about what comes after this, but it's kind of comforting to know that people are finding out that there is more. You think, you only get one life. You only get one life is what you always hear, but clearly we get more than that. At least that's my opinion. And since I'm the host, that's the show's opinion as well. So anyway, love you all. Thanks for staying and listening. And that's our hour of the Paranormal Portal. And we'll look for you again next week. And I'll try to get some updates for y'all. Take care. Be good to each other.